Marilyn Monroe was more than a Hollywood icon. Her life was a mix of triumphs and struggles that shaped her enduring legacy. Remembered for her beauty and unforgettable presence, Monroe's story goes beyond the screen, touching on her behind-the-scenes impact, personal heartaches, and resilience. Let's dive into some lesser-known facts about the woman behind the fame. Number 10. Joe DiMaggio's devotion even after their divorce. One of the most famous and tragic relationships in Marilyn's life was with baseball legend Joe DiMaggio. Though they married in 1954, their relationship was short-lived, ending in divorce just 9 months later. However, despite their tumultuous marriage, DiMaggio remained devoted to Monroe until her death. He arranged her funeral and continued to honor her memory for decades. DiMaggio regularly sent roses to Monroe's grave for 20 years, a gesture that showed the depth of his affection and regret over their brief time together. Their marriage was marred by Monroe's public persona and DiMaggio's personal insecurities. Yet he remained an important figure in her life even after they parted ways. Monroe's beauty and status as a cultural icon continued to haunt their relationship. And while they had their differences, their connection transcended their divorce. Number 9. Monroe's heartbreak over trying to become a mother. Though Monroe had the world at her feet, there was one dream she could not realize: becoming a mother. Monroe desperately wanted children, and she tried multiple times to conceive during her marriage to playwright Arthur Miller. Tragically, her attempts ended in heartbreak, including a painful ectopic pregnancy in 1957 that required termination. The loss of this pregnancy was made even more difficult by the constant intrusion of the press into her personal life. In 1960, while filming Some Like It Hot, Monroe suffered another miscarriage. Despite this, she remained hopeful that she would one day be able to fulfill her dream of motherhood. But she passed away just a few years later, never achieving this deeply personal goal. Number 8. Her iconic wardrobe was worth a fortune. Monroe's style was as unforgettable as her performances. She wore some of the most iconic outfits in pop culture history, and several of her dresses have been sold at auction for astronomical prices. Perhaps the most famous moment of her sartorial history came in 1962, when she performed a sultry rendition of Happy Birthday for President John F. Kennedy, wearing a sheer rhinestone-encrusted gown. This dress fetched an astounding $1.267 million at auction in 1999, making it one of the most expensive items of clothing ever sold at the time. Monroe's wardrobe continued to break records in subsequent years, with her 7-year itch dress selling for $4.6 million in 2011, followed by another sale of the Happy Birthday dress for $4.8 million in 2016. Monroe's fashion legacy has only grown over time, with her iconic looks continuing to inspire designers and fashion lovers alike. Number 7. Monroe was drastically underpaid for her Playboy photos. Before she became an international superstar, Monroe was struggling to make ends meet. In 1949, when she was still an aspiring model, she posed for photographer Tom Kelly in a series of nude photos that would later become legendary. These photos would not gain widespread attention until 1953, when they were featured in the first issue of Playboy magazine, helping to launch the publication into stardom. While these photos became an iconic part of Monroe's legacy, she was only paid $50 for the shoot, a paltry sum considering her later fame. Monroe's role in Playboy helped solidify her status as one of the most famous sex symbols of the 20th century, but she was drastically underpaid for her contributions at the time. This underlines the exploitation that many women in Hollywood faced, with Monroe being no exception despite her immense popularity. Number 6. The Kennedy Affair. The idea of Marilyn Monroe's alleged affair with President John F. Kennedy has been the subject of much speculation and conspiracy theories. The story has been widely believed ever since her performance of Happy Birthday at Madison Square Garden in 1962, which was thought to signal a romantic relationship between the two. However, there is little evidence to support the claim that Monroe and JFK were ever involved in a long-term affair. Reports suggest that their relationship, if it existed, was brief and may have been exaggerated by the media. The most widely believed account is that they had one sexual encounter at Bing Crosby's house in Palm Springs, and aside from that, there is no solid evidence of any ongoing affair. Still, conspiracy theories about their relationship continue to persist, adding a layer of intrigue to Monroe's already mysterious life. Number 5. Monroe had several sets of foster parents. Monroe's childhood was filled with turmoil and hardship. Born as Norma Jean Mortensen, she was placed into foster care at an early age due to her mother's struggles with mental illness. Monroe spent much of her early years in a series of foster homes, and at one point, she even found herself living in an orphanage. Monroe's mother, Gladys Pearl Baker, was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and Monroe became a ward of the state at just 9 years old. Her unstable upbringing had a profound impact on her, and it is said that this early trauma contributed to her later struggles with depression and anxiety. To avoid being sent back to the orphanage, Monroe married her first husband, James Doherty, at the age of 16. Number 4. Her screen name was almost Gina Dare. Before she became Marilyn Monroe, the aspiring actress went through several name changes during her modeling career. She first used names like Jean Norman and Mona Monroe before deciding on Marilyn Monroe. She initially considered using Gina Dare as her stage name when signing a film contract with 20th Century Fox in 1946, but she ultimately chose the name Marilyn Monroe, which would go on to become synonymous with fame, glamour, and beauty. Monroe's transformation from a young girl with a troubled past into one of Hollywood's brightest stars is a testament to her resilience and determination. Her choice of a screen name marked the beginning of a new era in her life and set the stage for the iconic career that followed. Number 3. Monroe was not plus-sized. Monroe was often regarded as the epitome of the curvy woman, with her hourglass figure being both celebrated and commodified. However, contrary to popular belief, Monroe was not plus-sized by today's standards. Standing at 5'5" and weighing approximately 118 pounds, Monroe's measurements were often exaggerated. Despite her curves, she was considered a healthy weight and maintained a small waist, often reported to be around 22 inches. Her image as a plus-sized woman has often been misrepresented, and she was never close to being full-figured. In fact, Monroe's body was quite typical of the average woman at the time, yet she was often seen as a symbol of the ideal feminine form. Number 2. Monroe was no dumb blonde. Monroe's iconic persona often portrayed her as a playful, bubbly, and somewhat naive blonde bombshell. However, this persona was far from the truth. Behind the scenes, Monroe was an avid reader and a lover of literature. She had a personal library of over 400 books and even attended UCLA extension classes in literature. Monroe was not just a pretty face, she was intellectually curious and deeply thoughtful. Her close friendship with author Truman Capote showed a different side to Monroe. Capote described her as very, very shy, very insecure, but also very, very bright. Monroe's ability to play the dumb blonde in front of the cameras was just a reflection of her incredible acting talents. In reality, she was far more intelligent and self-aware than most gave her credit for. Number 1. Monroe was one of the first women to head a production company. Marilyn Monroe didn't just make her mark in front of the camera, she also broke barriers behind the scenes. In 1955, after a contract dispute with 20th Century Fox, Monroe took control of her career by founding her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions. This move made her one of the first women to ever head a film production company in Hollywood, a groundbreaking achievement in a male-dominated industry. Though the company only produced one film, The Prince and the Showgirl, Monroe's bold decision set the stage for other women in Hollywood to take control of their careers. Her ambition behind the scenes demonstrated that Monroe was more than just a glamorous actress. She was a savvy businesswoman who was determined to have a hand in shaping her own destiny. If you found these surprising facts about Marilyn Monroe fascinating, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing content. Stay tuned.